this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight. So, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
You serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair. Here's the pillow. Here's Bill.
Hello there, folks. Glad you're tuned in today to Blindsight. I'm your host, Bill Lundgren, and it's a real pleasure to be with you today. And it's an especial pleasure for me to introduce today's guest, Bonnie Barlow. Bonnie is responsible for providing audio describers for many events around the area. And some of you may have tuned in when she was a guest of my compatriot, Penn Street. But it was about time to have her back on, and I want to let people know that this is part of mental health. When we talk about ways that blind people can be involved in things that everyone else is involved in and get a lot of enjoyment. And Bonnie is the person who's been able to increase the enjoyment of a lot of things in Colorado. Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Bonnie, I always ask my guests how they got into the business they're in. But before that, I want to ask you just to clarify for people what audio description is all about.
Okay, a description of description by Bonnie Barlow.
Yep.
Basically, so audio description is, through audio description, a describer conveys information that's inaccessible or only partially accessible to a segment of the total population, blind people, to provide a comparable experience to that of sighted consumers. As sign language and closed captions provide access for people who are deaf or hard of hearing and are recognized as being present by most folks, audio description is a comparable accessible tool for the blind and visually impaired, though a lot of people still have not heard of it. So the quality audio description is the practice of using vivid, objective, and accurate description of visual events provided to individuals who are blind. And there are lots of areas where AD is used these days and growing all the time. And so I can tell you about any and all of those that are of interest to you. First, I thought it would be fun to tell people how I met you.
Yeah.
Do you remember how we met?
No,
Do you remember how we met?
No, I'm not sure. I'm assuming it was at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts.
Yep. I was there to describe one of the plays, don't remember which one, but I was actually up in my booth already, and I saw you come in with, I think it was with Archie, perhaps.
Archie, yeah.
And I saw that you had a cane. Yeah, I saw that you had a cane, and I saw that you didn't have headphones, and I thought, gosh, does he know about audio description? So I came down the back steps and came into the audience and said, "Excuse me, you don't know me, but I'm the audio describer for this show today. Would you like to hear the audio description?" And you said, "Well, sure, whatever that is." And so we got you a headset, and you listened to the description at the DCPA, I think, for the first time. So that was that.
That was a wonderful introduction, because I have ever since I've hit every play at the DCPA with my earphones, and because I'm deaf as well, I have to wear the listening device as well as the device to use for audio description. And for people who have not experienced this, they're a listening device which transmit FM from the stage to allow people who have hearing difficulty to hear a show, and then a similar device with a different channel set up to receive the word from the audio describer as to what's going on stage. And I can tell, I told Bonnie this, there was one time where there was the actor, as part of his, the scene he was doing, he was making some rather lewd, motion. And if I'd been the audio describer, I would have been a little blunt and probably thrown out of the theater. But the audio describer did a beautiful job of using words very gently so people knew what was going on stage, but no one was running out of the audience. And that was one of the times that I realized the job of an audio describer is a little more difficult than I thought.
It is nuanced. There are choices to be made every moment.
Well, one of the nuances I experience is, for example, with Billy Budd, which was a play, but had a lot of ballet scenes in it. And my understanding that your people are doing the Colorado Ballet. And what's that like? What's that like for somebody to describe a ballet as opposed to action on a stage with a play that has a lot of dialogue?
Right. Well, one of the basic things that I teach people and that I follow is that I'm always describing an experience. I'm not just giving information. So if I were to try to describe a ballet by just giving information, I might give the names of the certain dance moves and try to name them all as they're doing them, and get into, the specific topics and vocabulary that they use, but that wouldn't mean anything to most of the blind audience or to any audience. So what I do is I think, what is the experience that people are getting from this? And it's always that a story is being told. And then how is the story being told? And it's the same for whether it's a play or a show or a ballet or even contemporary dance. There's a story that's at the basis of it. And what I need to do is look at the things that tell me the story and share those. So with something like the Nutcracker, it's pretty easy to follow the story. And with ballet, it's kind of easier to describe because you don't have to fight with dialogue.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The trick is to kind of leave space for the beautiful music to play out sometimes.
Yeah.
So if I'm describing snowflakes and icicles and things as they're dancing through that scene, I'll every once in a while just want to stop and let the music just play out after I've set the scene of, there's snow falling from, the rafters, plus the little icicles and their little tutus that are sparkling and white. And then the snowflakes are slightly different kind of, and they're all forming a circle, and then they swirl around and they leave and they return. And so it's that sort of thing where it's about relationships between dancers or actors or anything that's in a scene, and how that kind of conveys the story and emotion. So it's not whether someone's standing or dancing to the left of everyone or to the right. It's, are they close together, indicating a relationship, or are they far apart? Have they turned away? Changes in relationships. All that kind of stuff is how the storytelling happens, and all I do is translate that.
And then the trick is, or what the person who doesn't have sight or has minimal amount of sight is to allow themselves to imagine, to take your words and imagine what they're seeing on the stage. And I think that's one of the beauties of of theater, is when we can use our imagination. In ballet, we can use our imagination, and that remains with us. And with your help, that's how we can increase our enjoyment of a particular performance. And I think this is why it's always been fun for me to go to the theater, even though I can't see what's going on, like Hamilton or whatever, to be able to have the describer tell me what's going on, and then I can imagine what, to my satisfaction, what's going on the stage. And so it's really
based on your own life experience.
Yeah, and it's a partnership.
Based on your own life experience and past history,
And it's a partnership between the person in the audience and the describer, is what you're saying.
Right. And as a describer, I try to strike kind of a middle ground between, because I'm describing to people who may have never had sight or may have recently lost their sight. And so I have to kind of provide for sort of a middle ground. It's like, people may or may not have seen this before, say colors or whatever, but there are general kind of societal, stories about colors, how red is usually considered passionate and hot, and blue is, the color of the ice and the sky and that sort of thing. So I kind of convey those basic colors as I see a director of lighting producing that in so often in a play like Hamilton. They'll change the lighting, like when everyone kind of freezes in motion and Hamilton steps forward to sing, something by himself because it's his inner thoughts. Often they change the lighting right then to purple or something. And so after I establish the first time the lights go to purple, he steps aside. And then now the lights go back up and everyone moves again. Then next time I can just say the lights go purple. And we know this is him alone again. So there are certain conventions that they use that we convey then to kind of indicate those kinds of changes. Because it's important to know whether he's talking to everyone or just us. So when they break the fourth wall, so to speak, we sometimes have to do that too. It's not, according to the rules, we're always supposed to be objective, but sometimes, like say, again in Hamilton, you've got the king singing out to the audience as if we are his subjects. And so in that case, I'll say he looks toward us or he looks out over the audience, the subjects. So I'll kind of give you that entree to that same experience, like, ooh, he's talking to me now. Okay. I'm kind of scared of this guy.
Yeah, right.
And then at the end of his, you'll be back sort of song, he points his scepter at the audience and gives us a look and then turns away. It's kind of like a threat. So it's just kind of, again, absorbing the story and conveying that. So that's a lot more important than just he's standing over there and these other guys are doing something over there. And so it's just a matter of continually prioritizing, what's going on and getting into the mood of the show and keeping that suspension of disbelief so that everyone can stay in the story. And so we don't refer to things as the stage. We'll say it's it's the commons, it's the dock, it's, whatever. So we'll always kind of keep within the story.
And I guess that's part of the reason that the describer will do the playbill and set the scene and describe the various scenes that will be and describe the costume that the people will wear so that we can have the viewer has a sense of imagining how it looks and get involved. It isn't being passive. It's being for the audience to not be passive, but to be very active in the process of participating in the play or whatever the musical the event is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is the basic first step for all description of no matter what kind is to set the scene. So in a painting, it's what's on the canvas, what is in this picture. Is it trees? Is it the woods? Whatever. And then you can get more in detail. For on a stage, it's like I will describe the first set that we'll see, like in Hamilton, you've got the whole big set and it's, the wooden flooring and everything's kind of the rough wood that they would have had around the docks and ships in that time. And then you have the second story balcony that goes all the way across the back. And so now you have a place to kind of put all of the action that I'm going to tell you about is happening. Instead of, if I didn't give you that basis, it's like, well, what does it look like that they're on? Are they like floating in space? Not likely, but it could be. Where is this taking place? And it's the same for TV and movies too. Each time a location changes, we give you the location so that you have an anchor, a place to put that action. So it makes it easier. So that's the very first thing we do is always set the stage, so to speak.
Wow. That's a lot of work on the describer's part to help us get the full experience. Yeah. And I know that in New York they've been doing, I can't remember the name of that, but if you go into a theater in New York and you ask for Galapro, then you have a pre-recorded audio description. But I have a feeling, the times that I've used it in New York, it doesn't have quite the same effect on me as live audio description, where the person is responding to what's going on stage in a way that they're really caught up in it. The audio describer is caught up in it as much as the audience.
Right. I'm glad to hear your perspective on that, because I hadn't known anyone who would really listen to them. It's just such a nuanced sort of, there's that word again. Mm-hmm. It's just such a subtle difference between, I like to strike the tone of being a friend sitting next to you,
right,
telling you, ooh, here's what I'm seeing up there.
Right.
Ooh, this is really interesting. This is the thing I want you to know about right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm always keeping that in mind, no matter what I'm describing, whether I'm writing a description for a movie or, describing in person. It's like I'm experiencing this myself on a real visceral level, and that's what I want you to experience. That's what I mean by it's not just about the information, it's about the experience. Mm. And they can try, to add automation of any kind to this, but it's just not the same. Artificial intelligence is artificial, no matter how. And anything that takes you out of that suspension of disbelief is doing you a disservice. It's taking you away from the experience everyone else is having, which is, I'm lost in this story. Mm-hmm. And you deserve to be lost in the story too. Mm. So that's my belief about that there thing.
Well, how did you get into this business?
Okay, so back in 1991, 92, it was not long after the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was in 90, basically, that I had gotten to know Gail Hamilton here in Denver, who was blind, and she had been my voice teacher. That's how I had met her. And so as a result, I got to know different folks in the blind community and people with disabilities in general, folks who were with the Coalition for People with Disabilities and that sort of thing, and the rehab and all those folks. And they were going to, like the NFB was going to go to CATS, and they told Very Special Arts Colorado, which was providing access for people with disabilities to the arts, like they had a children's dance group of kids with Down syndrome that they would support, or artists who were, visually impaired who did work in bas relief or something. They would support them. So it was both for people enjoying the arts and wanting to do the arts that they were providing access for. So folks went to them and said, we've heard about audio description. Can you please start doing audio description? And we would like you to describe cats. And if you don't, we're going to stand up in the middle of the show and protest. So, was it Damon McLeish? No, it was Lynn Replinger was the head of Very Special Arts at that time. So she and the others said, well, I think we should probably try to make this happen. So they found a gentleman out in Illinois, Alan Woods. He was with the university there. And they said, can you, help us figure out how to train some audio describers for Denver? So he sent out some materials, like little bits of film clips and blank cassette tapes and a recorder, and said, have auditions, have people come watch these little bits of the film clips, tell them, describe this objectively, say what you see, not what you feel or think, don't be subjective. And then describe it onto the tape. And so we all did that. About 12 or so people auditioned, and I was one of them. And we sent that all back to him, and he chose the people who should be describers. And he came out for that weekend, trained us like Friday night and Saturday, and then he described on Sunday cats, and we all listened. And that was how it was begun. After that, Very Special Arts kind of took care of getting some equipment through a grant and scheduling different shows and kind of building the program, and went through a few different CEOs of that organization. And eventually they didn't really want to spend a lot of their time on the audio description element, so I took that part over, and I started being the liaison between the theaters and describers, and I had already started training some other describers and stuff, so I was the constant through the years. Everyone that's describing now in Denver is someone that I trained, basically, or came here from somewhere else. I'm the only original one left, I think. Well, I trained Honey, too, so yeah. So that's how we done that. So I just, did that for the most part for years at lots of the different theaters around here. Would always go around and try to, we did theater on Broadway, we do family, we did vintage theater, we did Aurora Fox, lots of different theaters. Did I say family? They're different productions. Right. I described many of their productions over the years. And then I eventually started getting into doing description for TV and movies there's a company called Audio Eyes, who's based in LA, and Rick Boggs. And I started writing description for him, where they send me the videos that they've gotten the work for, and I write the script. So I started with like Grace and Frankie and Blackish and Modern Family, some of the, well-known shows that were on ABC, and have written description for those for years. And I just added movies and conferences and live events, and done the rodeo, No Barriers USA summits. I've trained groups now to learn how to do their own descriptions. I trained a group of gals in Greece at the Lighthouse for the Blind how to describe their cultural dances that they do. I'm going to be starting with a group in the United Kingdom. I think they're in Scotland this week. I've trained some folks in Canada. There was the Hobby Center in Houston has the Broadway plays come through there, and I trained them to kind of do. They, interestingly, based on I'm kind of coming full circle, your note about how describing actual, motions, whether they're lewd or not, is something that a describer is supposed to do. We're not supposed to censor.
Right.
They discovered there that their describers that they had hired from outside were censoring some of the material, specifically from the Book of Mormon, because they heard description one year and then another year, and they heard the differences. And it's like, that other person didn't tell us about that business. So they said, we need to get better control of our describers and the fact that they don't censor themselves, for one thing. Yep. So I did some training with them on how to bring it in-house and how to handle those situations.
Sure.
And basically it's a matter of matching the tone of the show. You've got people there who are already watching the show. They're already immersed in that sort of cultural reference that is being used. So just using the tone of the show, saying pelvic thrusts or, just whatever the motions are that you see, that's not you being lewd. That's them, expressing themselves and you translating it. So that's all that is. But people, think that they have the right to censor something because they're uncomfortable or they think someone else might be uncomfortable. And that's just not, appropriate describing. So those are the kind of basics I try to teach.
Well, I heard you talk about dance. I heard you talk about plays. What other, and TV and movies? I've often wondered whether what it would be like if an audio describer would be available to describe artwork for someone who goes to, say, an art museum.
Oh, yeah. Yep, we do that in many different ways. What I've done, I used to do scripts for the Denver Art Museum when they would bring in certain temporary exhibits. We would create description for, say, the artists of Cos Cob, the ones who were, like Homer Winslow. And so I would write description of specific paintings or sculptures, and either the docents would read my description and then their subjective input on the piece. Because if you go to a museum, they'll tell you all about the artwork, but they won't tell you what it looks like because they assume you can see it. So basically, we just, again, set that stage. What is it we're looking at so that it makes sense when you start comparing it to this guy versus that artist? And so I did scripts for quilts, Amish quilts, the great European masters, African masks. I mean, you name it, even modern art.
I know for the quilt exhibit, Anne Cunningham, who a lot of people in the blindness community knows because she would do tactile embossing of different artwork. So the combination of having you describe and having Anne's tactile work can really give a person who is blind even a lot more nuance than perhaps someone who can only look at a piece of art and not really have that feel that we can have by touching the embossing.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, like with the ballet and with the art, anytime you can get a touch kind of sensory tour going as well, really makes the experience better. So we would always try to do that with the ballet when we could. We would have a sensory tour and let people feel the costumes and the set and all of that. So again, you can imagine where it's taking place. They did, for the ballet, they did an amazing new ballet for The Wizard of Oz. So they had the monkeys and the wings and, the witch and all kinds of cool stuff that people could go feel ahead of time. And that was just incredible to describe and to get to witness. But so then also there are museums that will have, exhibits. So I recently finished a Smithsonian exhibit called The Entertainment Nation. And it's a new, almost full floor exhibit. It's going to be there for 20 years, and it has accessible features to it. And so the description I wrote was either of different films and movie clips and TV shows that talked about it was about the melting pot of our nation and people of all different cultures and diversity through shows like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and movies and films. And so it became very important to describe, the relationships again between the people who were either portrayed in the entertainment or enjoying different entertainment together, like black and white audiences watching Sesame Street with the same amount of interest and engagement and that sort of thing. So, and some of it was interactive where you go plug in the headphones and you get to touch the guitar, one of Prince's guitars. And so I would add to my description, the style of his guitars and add in a little bit of the history of some of those things. So it was a real mix of things to describe. And that was like a 3-month project. And so I still have all the materials from that I'd like to share with people in some way without them having to actually even go to the museum necessarily. But it's definitely there if people want to go visit it.
Oh. So I guess whenever we go to any of these places, the key is to ask people, okay, do you have audio description? Yes. Do you have, to ask for these things, not to be shy about it. And if people don't know, then you kind of give them, so let's say someone at the front desk doesn't know, then you can kind of nudge them to find out. Before you you decide to go to some event. You said there was a photography show coming up in Lakewood.
Yeah. Yes, the Lakewood Cultural Center in April is going to be having group of their photographers who are blind and visually impaired themselves, and they have a method that they've developed where they use regular film, like camera film, not digital, and they'll have a subject in a dark room, but they'll open the aperture so that any amount of light that is coming in will get captured, and they start moving lights like flashlights and stuff around their subject, whether it's a person or people, and then It's kind of hard to describe for someone who's never seen it, but when light is exposed, like in time-lapse, things like that, you don't see pinpoints, you see lines where the lights, kind of draw out. It's kind of like where single images and frames become film. It's like single points of light become lines and extended more like film would be, so that you see the outline of the thing they're doing. So they're going to be showing some of that, plus they've paired it with jazz that they wrote specifically for this, and they're going to do a group project afterward where everyone who's in attendance will have a photograph created of them in the same way.
Bonnie, that was really fascinating stuff you shared with us, and will certainly guide, hopefully, our listeners to try more events that they wouldn't otherwise go to and get audio description. And what we'll do, Bonnie, is we'd like to bring you back. We want to have you just let people know about some of the things that are happening in this area that people might want to go to. So people, listeners, pay attention to part 2 of this program coming up. We haven't set a date yet, but we will. And meanwhile, go out and try the events you know about, and look forward to seeing you there. This is Bill Lundgren, host of Blindsight, produced by the Audio Information Network of Denver, of Colorado. And if you, the listener, have any ideas for things you want us to talk about or focus on, don't hesitate to give us an email. Let us know how you feel about the program. We will read all the emails, and we certainly enjoy having you all on board. Goodbye.